Hey everybody, it's Eric from the Retail Archaeology channel, and it's a new month, which means it's time for a new Goodwill thrifting video sponsored by Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona. And this time I think I'm going to go hunting for some cool retail relics at night, because I find that a lot of times going to Goodwill later in the evening is a good time to go because the store is usually pretty empty and you kind of have the whole place to yourself and you can really browse and look for some cool stuff. So let's go take a look. Alright, on to our first Goodwill store. And this is one I visit quite frequently. And the first thing I saw when I walked in were these vintage lunch boxes. There's a Cabbage Patch Kids one here, and a Sesame Street one. These were pretty cool to see. I've been seeing less and less of these lately. And then over in the other case, there were some N64 games, NES games, and some other stuff. I actually grabbed these two games here because I didn't have them yet. And then over in the CD section, something caught my eye. I thought this was a Mega Man game or something because of the logo, but it's actually Mega Ran, which is a really cool nerdcore kind of rapper. And I saw him perform recently at a video game convention, and this is brand new, this CD, so this was cool to find. Definitely going to pick this up and add it to my collection. And then over in the toys, I found this Pocket Repeat, which is a Radio Shack version of Simon. Pretty neat little game. Not something I needed, though. And then I saw this Mattel Classic basketball game, and I thought it was a vintage game for a second, but when you take a closer look, this one was actually manufactured in 2003. But that's actually still a good price for it. They still sell these new in Target, and they're about 20 bucks. Do you guys remember answering machines? This is super old. This is back when they still used cassette tapes. I like the aesthetic of this thing with the big knobs and buttons and the wood grain around it. Here's the manufacturer and model number in case you're interested. It's not often that you come across something this old anymore. I love finding stuff like this at Goodwill. And also in the electronics, I found this really weird cassette player. Cow on the front, I'm not sure what that's about. And I flipped it over and was surprised to see that this is also from Radio Shack. Been finding a lot of Radio Shack stuff in Goodwills lately. And I was actually tempted to grab this just to test it out, but the battery cover was missing, so I didn't want to deal with it. And speaking of cassette players, I found this beast. And this is really yellowed. This could stand for a good dose of retro brighting. This is a Caliphone cassette player, and I believe these were used in educational settings. And this thing is really heavy too, as well as large. It makes sense though, with these being used with little kids and stuff, you want it to be bulletproof basically. But you can get a better idea of the regular color of this thing, the original color, and really get an idea of how yellowed it is. Besides the yellowing though, it seemed to be in pretty good shape. And on to our second Goodwill, and this is not one that I visit very often. It's kind of out of the way a little bit, but I was out in this area. And right when I walked in, the first thing that caught my eye was this really old Lloyd's record player, turntable. I'm not sure what those slots are. They seem to be about 8-track size, which is weird. I wonder if this was meant to sit on top of an 8-track player or a receiver with 8-track. And I also found a Sega Saturn racing wheel, which is pretty interesting because the last time I was here maybe even over a year ago, I found a Sega Saturn. And now the next time I'm here, way later, I find a Sega Saturn racing wheel, which I didn't have, so I'm definitely going to pick this up. And then over in the DVDs, I found a whole lot of Airwolf. I used to love the show when I was a kid. Looks like somebody parted with pretty much their whole collection. And then over here with some of the PC games, I found Pinball Warriors, and I love video pinball games, especially old PC pinball games, and this is not one that I had. I wasn't going to grab it, but then I decided I couldn't pass it up for the price. I love looking at the VHS tapes at Goodwill as well. And this tape here with this Smith's Video Center caught my eye. Smith's was a grocery store chain that used to exist in Arizona and other states as well, I believe. And this is back from when grocery stores used to have VHS rental sections. And I also love Rocky and Bullwinkle, so I'm definitely going to grab this between the video store markings on it and the fact that it's Rocky and Bullwinkle. Lots and lots of stuff here that's tempting, but I have to keep my VHS collection small. I don't have a lot of room between that and the video game collection. So I really try and keep it to things that I'm very nostalgic for. And there were a lot of VHS tapes at this Goodwill as well. Here's all the big plastic clamshell style ones like Disney did for their animated movies. Something else I wanted to mention as well is most of the video in this episode was actually filmed with a new camera. I picked up a GoPro Hero 6 Black, and I figured filming in Goodwill was a great place to test it out. So you'll have to let me know what you guys think of the results down in the comments below. Here's another VHS tape. Here's an Animaniacs VHS tape, and I loved the Animaniacs when I was a kid. And this is a sing-along tape, and I think it's the one where he sings all the countries of the world, which is absolutely hysterical. So definitely going to pick this up too. So much nostalgia here and little pieces of my childhood. You guys recognize what this is? It's one of those like fat jiggling machines. I was pretty surprised to find this. I'm not sure how old this one is, but it looks to be in really great shape. I love quack medical stuff like this. This is not anything I've ever seen at Goodwill before. Alright, and on to Goodwill number 3. And this is one of my favorite Goodwill stores. I find a lot of good stuff at this one. Right there in the case, there's a obscure Game Boy game. Boomer's Adventures in Asmic World. I actually have that one already. And here's some Nintendo DS Lites and a DSi, and those are really good prices. I have a bunch of those laying around the house already, or I would have picked one up. And then over here in the toys, I found a super old retail relic. This is a old slide sorter viewer thing from Kmart. And look at that old Kmart logo there. That is a really old Kmart logo. They seem to be in really good shape too. The box was in good condition. Contents were in good shape. I really love finding this kind of stuff at Goodwill, and this is the kind of stuff I find at this particular store. It's just really cool, old, interesting retail relics to look at. You know, even if you're not going to buy it, it's weird to look at and hold, you know. And over here in the video games, a lot of PS2 games. A lot of Xbox 360 games as well, but here's a PS1 game that I didn't have, World's Scariest Police Chases, and I know absolutely nothing about this game, but I'm going to pick it up because the World's Scariest Police Chases stuff is hysterical, so this should be an interesting game to play. And at that price, you know, even if it's only a couple hours of entertainment, it's definitely worth it. A lot of Xbox 360 stuff, though. This was like maybe, some stuff that somebody took to GameStop and wasn't happy with what they were offered and just dumped it off at Goodwill, which I've done that before. I mean, if GameStop's not going to give me anything for it, I'd rather just donate it. Lots of Sims 2 stuff also. I see lots of this stuff all the time at Goodwill. I know there's a market for this stuff too. I always get comments about it in the videos telling me I should pick it up, but like I said, I'm not into the Sims. So if you are, go to this Goodwill and go grab the stuff. This is kind of a cool VHS tape set, but I've already have this one. Jerry Maguire. Always have to have a copy of Jerry Maguire at Goodwill. One of the reasons why I like perusing the VHS tapes at Goodwill so much is it kind of reminds me of being at the video store, when you were at like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video looking for something to rent. That's not something you can do anymore, but this is the closest thing to it. Oh my god, Renegade. I don't know if you guys remember this TV show, but it used to come on after the Highlander syndicated show when I was a kid, and it is mullet-rific. So much mullitude. If you're into like 90s syndicated cheese, you should check this out. So awful. Digimon. Fox Kids VHS tape. I always find tons of Pokemon VHS tapes at Goodwill, but I don't see Digimon very often. I think I'm going to grab this one and add it to my collection just since it's different. Now what are these? You guys remember old landline telephones like this? Oh, and look, Radio Shack. I always find tons of Radio Shack branded stuff at Goodwill. Tells you how much of their stuff sold back in the day, that's for sure, when you find it like all over the place at thrift stores. And on to our last Goodwill, and you can see here it's getting pretty late. Lots of vintage toys and stuff here, though. Check out those old Barbie clothes. Bags and bags of old Legos. And these Spice Girls Super Stages. I, for some reason, find a lot of Spice Girls stuff at Goodwill also. And usually sealed, brand new like this. And this kind of stuff cracks me up, man. They must have sold millions of these if they find them all over the place like I do. Gotta check out the video games. Just shovelware. This, however, is not shovelware. This is Blade Runner for the PC, and this is an older PC game. I believe this is for Windows 95. And I don't have this. I love Blade Runner, and I love Westwood Studio stuff, so I'm going to grab that for sure. And then back over in the case, I found more N64 games, which is a system I'm actively collecting for right now. One of them fell down here, it looks like. And they're all sports titles, but I don't have any of these, so I'm going to grab them. And over in the electronics section, I found this portable TV. It's from Magnavox. And I was pretty tempted to grab this. It has an AM/FM radio built into it as well, but I like the fact that it had inputs on it, but I couldn't tell if it was black and white or color. And it also didn't have the power cable, and it looked like it was some sort of proprietary power cable. It wasn't going to be some generic thing I could just pick up for $1 while I was here. So there was no way to test it, so I didn't want to spend the money on it in case it didn't work. But I am kind of on the lookout for one of these. I want to find a color one to hook up to an old Atari that I have. I just think it would be neat. This one's in really good condition. I wish the power cable was there. And here we have an answer clock from Tomy. And I actually remember playing with one of these at the doctor's office when I was a kid in the waiting room. So it was kind of a trip to see it here. And, you know, it's a little dinged up and scratched up, but it actually works perfectly. You can see there you set the time on the analog clock, and then when you push the other button, the eyes open up. And it teaches you how to tell time on an analog clock, which I guess is something that doesn't go on in schools anymore, which I find odd. I also never realized how old this thing was. I never looked at the year on it when I was a kid, but looking at this now, it's from 1975. This is in pretty good shape. And again, is another reason why I love coming to Goodwill, is to, you know, look at old stuff like this. Even if I'm not going to buy it, it's fun to look at it. And over here in the books section, there's some old strategy guides that caught my eye. Here's the official strategy guide for Halo Combat Evolved for the Xbox, which is one of my favorite games. I love all the Halo games. I love the Halo universe. So I'm going to grab that because I don't have this. I think it'll be an interesting piece to add to the Halo collection that I have. You can see here more old strategy guides for like StarCraft, and tons of the idiots and dummies guides. You see lots of those at Goodwill as well. Man, if you're a VHS collector, now's the time to be hitting places like Goodwill, because all these tapes are 50 cents each. Here's the Beverly Hillbillies. This was interesting to see just because the case design was kind of different. And I was kind of tempted to grab a few of those, except for I remembered I actually don't like the Beverly Hillbillies. That's one of the old shows I don't like. It's not as good as things like Gilligan's Island. Now, DuckTales, though, is great, and I've got quite a few DuckTales VHS tapes, but I don't have this one, and I loved DuckTales when I was a kid. I love all the Disney Afternoon stuff. So I'm going to grab that to add to the collection. I always find lots of anime VHS tapes at Goodwill as well. If that's something you should collect, you should definitely check out Goodwill. This is not a series that I'm into, though, so not something I'm interested in. I know people will say that VHS is a crappy format, but I have a lot of nostalgia, and some stuff is just meant to be watched on VHS, I think. There's Jumanji, the actual real Jumanji, the good one, not that garbage that's out right now. Now, Dragon Ball Z, that I did watch when I was a kid. And I actually have all of these VHS tapes already. But speaking of things that are meant to be watched on VHS, I think this is one of them, The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I haven't seen this in forever. And I had forgot that Richard Dawson is in this, and he's actually really good in it too. One of his really good performances. I'm going to grab this just because I want to watch The Running Man again, and that's the appropriate way to watch it. But anyways, here's my haul for this episode. We got the Halo guide, which I'm definitely excited to have. Some PlayStation 1 and PC games and that Mega Ran CD. Lots of VHS. I keep saying I'm trying to keep the collection small, but I keep adding to it. And that Sega Saturn wheel, which I'm really excited to have and try out with like Virtua Racing and stuff. We've got the N64 games and NES game that I picked up. So overall, pretty good haul. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/retailarchaeology to find out how you can help support the channel. Hey, thanks for checking out another Hunting for Retail Relics at Goodwill video. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already, and also check out the social media links down below because that's the best way to keep up with what's going on with the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.